right, guys, so let's jump into our lesson. What we're going to chat about today is multiplication and division of integers. Now, this first little bit, don't stress. You don't even have to take a screenshot if you don't want to. It's more just an explanation of what we're going to be dealing with. But sort of once we start with the examples, that's where you need to be writing things down. So as Yolanda always says, you add a table or a desk with your pen and your paper and you are ready. Okay. So if we have a look at this idea of multiplying and dividing, there's a few things we need to bear in mind. But just remember that multiplication is essentially adding the same group. No, sorry, let me rephrase that. Adding the same number multiple times. And division is separating a number into equal parts. That's really all it is, okay? So if we have a look here, if we consider each of these circles to have a value of 1, that means that in a group of circles, so let's call a row a group, I have a value of 3. And so what this is actually telling me is that I've got 4 groups of 3. And so now multiplication and division can come in to sort of explain both of this. 4 groups of 3, I've got then 3 plus 3 plus 3 plus 3, which is really tedious. So we know we could just say 3 times 4, and we get 12. And if we then go and have a look at the division side of things, we can see that if we have our 12 circles and we divide that by our 4 groups, we get that there's 3 in each group, and vice versa for 12 divided by 3. And so multiplication and division works with these even groups of numbers. Either we're adding the same number multiple times, or we are dividing a number into equal parts. And sort of we've already spoken about this idea of multiplication and division when we did our whole number section. I have to remember what the section was called there for a second. But now what we're going to have a look at when we start to talk about integers is this idea of negative numbers. So if we move over to the right-hand side here, you can see I've got pretty much the same diagram, except now all of my circles have a negative 1 in it. And so what this means is that an entire group has a value of negative 3. And so if I now have a situation where I've got 4 groups, oh, yes, I can't today. 4 groups of negative 3, I'm essentially adding negative 3 4 times. Now again, this is like quite time consuming to write out. And so this is where multiplication is our friend. What we are saying is negative 3 times 4. 4 groups of negative 3. Excuse me. And so what we're going to chat about today is how do we go and multiply and divide with positive and negative values, because there's some important things we need to be careful of. Right, so when we are multiplying and dividing with integers or with negative values, the thing that we need to be careful of is signs. Now we're going to chat a lot about this as we go through the lesson, but signs is very, very important as we start to multiply and divide with positives and negatives. And so to investigate this idea, we're going to have a look at the little pattern here. So if I go to this table and I've got 3 groups of negative 3. So if you want, go to these circles here, 1 group of negative 3, 2 groups of negative 3, 3 groups of negative 3. If I add up how many negative 3s I have, well, I've got negative 9. So if I were to add my 3 groups of negative 3, I would get negative 9. If I then only considered 2 groups, so 1, 2 groups, and I added up how many negative 1s I have, I would now have negative 6. And if I then considered only 1 group of negative 3, so essentially just, oh, that's poor color choice, I do apologize. So if I now consider only my first group of negative 3s, I would have a value of negative 3. Now, when we get to this idea of no groups of negative 3, or 0 times negative 3, you can look at it in a bunch of different ways. If you have no groups of negative 3, you've got 0. If you think back to your multiplication rules, anything times 0 is 0. So either way you look at it, we've got nothing there. And now the second bit of our table is where things start to become very important to take note of. In each case here, we have got a negative times a negative. And so we now need to see what's going to happen to these signs. But let's look at the pattern. From -9 to -6, I added 3. From -6 to -3, I added 3. And so I've got a pattern here of adding 3 each time. And so now when we get to a situation of a negative times a negative, I'm actually ending up with positive answers because 0 plus 3 is 3. 3 plus 3 is 6. And 6 plus 3 is 9. And so what we need to take away here is that when we've got a negative times a negative, we are getting a positive answer. And that's just through looking at this sort of pattern relationship. So like I said, you can take a screenshot of this if you want. This is more just an explanation leading us into what we need to chat about. I'm going to wait there. And if anyone has any questions, now is the time to raise your hand before we carry on and look at some examples. I know this is not your name, and I know I should know your name. And as soon as you say it, you're going to tell me. It's going to remind me of your name. It currently says PCO3.
Ma'am, my name is Zamu.
Yes.
Every time when I join, I don't know how to change my name, so that's a problem. But my name is Zamu.
Okay, if you just remind us on the chat, we'll change it.
Okay. And then, ma'am, my question is, how long does it take for us to finish one topic?
It depends on the topic.
Which?
Usually topics are between 2 and 3 weeks.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. Alrighty, guys. So hopefully we're all okay with this, but we're now going to have a look at sort of some rules, for lack of a better word, that we need to remember. So if we scroll down here, this is now what we need to be very careful of, our signs when multiplying and dividing. Now, what's quite nice is that you don't have to learn different rules for multiplication and for division. It's the same rule for both. So when we are, if we start with multiplication, if we've got a positive times a positive, our answer is always going to be positive. If we have a positive times a negative, or even a negative times a positive, as long as there's one of each sign, my answer is always going to be a negative. And this was sort of coming from the conversation we just had with those circles of ones and negative ones. And finally, when we've got a negative times a negative, as we now saw with our table on the pattern, we get a positive. Now, guys, if this table over here wasn't making sense to you, don't stress. This is now what's really important. And that's why I said don't stress if you don't want to take a screenshot of that first stuff. This is now the important stuff. Right now, like I've said, the same rules apply for division. I'm just going to make that a touch longer. So if I'm saying a positive divided by a positive, I get a positive. If I'm saying a positive divided by a negative, or a negative divided by a positive, I'm going to get a negative. And finally, a negative divided by a negative still gives me a positive. So the rules are exactly the same for multiplication and division. So as long as you remember positive, positive is a positive, negative, negative is a positive, negative, positive is negative, you will be absolutely fine. And this takes us back to our SNV that we've spoken about a couple times. If you're new, you probably haven't heard of SNV before. I use SNV quite a lot. But SNV allows us to correctly multiply and divide terms. So S stands for signs. We check the signs first using this sort of rule over here. So if I had a positive times a negative, I know that my answer must be negative. Then I go and multiply or divide the numbers I've been given. And then when we get to algebra, which is coming up, we will then have a look at the variables that we are working with. So SNV allows us to correctly multiply and divide values in an expression. So I'll wait here in case anyone does want to take a screenshot of our sign rules and of SNV. We're going to have a look at some examples here of how we can now correctly and accurately multiply and divide. Right, while everyone's taking a screenshot, if there's any questions that anyone has, now's the time to raise your hand and ask before we start the examples. So, Lekele, question?
Hey, ma'am.
Hi.
Ma'am, when do we look at the variables when we have the exponent, the what you call algebra?
Yeah, so when we do algebra, we'll look at variables. All right, Tato?
Hi, ma'am.
Hi.
Ma'am,
Okay.
does this method with the same signs the same will be a positive? Does it also apply with brackets?
I'm not quite sure what you mean. Do you mean if like you had a bracket of -3 times -5, something like that?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, so as long as you're multiplying or dividing, these rules apply.
Okay, thank you, ma'am.
Okay, good. Okay, guys, so let's have a look at some examples. And now sort of what Tato's asked is going to become quite important now as we start to look at our first example. So if we start with example A, it's excessively big, but it's fine. I don't want you to see everything just yet. Let's do this one together so that we can see what's happening. So first things first is when you've got two brackets sitting right next to each other with nothing in between them, what we need to remember is that our operation we're using is multiplication. So what the sum is, or what this expression is saying to us is -5 times -4. And because we're multiplying, it means that we can use these multiplication rules with our signs. So we now need to double check what our signs are going to be. So this is now where we can use SNV to help us out. So we start by determining what sign is my answer going to be. I've got a negative times a negative. And so from our rules, we know that our sign should be positive. Now, obviously, guys, you don't need to write the positive there. I'm just putting it there to remind us that our answer should be positive. So we've dealt with the signs. Now we move on to the numbers. 5 times 4. I think because we're all pretty confident with our times tables, and if you're not, don't stress, it's practice. We know that 5 times 4 is 20. And so I've dealt with my numbers. Now I don't have any variables there, so I can just ignore the V. But I have now seen that -5 times -4 gives me a positive 20. Now again, we don't write the positive sign in front of the 20. If an answer is positive, we just write the number. It's only if it's negative that we put the sign in. But very importantly, a negative times a negative gives us a positive. And so what that means is that my answer, the final answer that we write down, should be positive. Right, so I'm going to make this a touch smaller so that you guys can try question B. There's question B. Again, remember when there's no sign in between a number and a bracket or between two brackets, what you're doing is you're multiplying. So there's no sign here. So what we are saying is 2 times a negative 7. So for B, I want you to think about what your signs are going to be when you multiply. You can put your answers in the chat. I don't want hands yet. I'll tell you when I want hands. But think about what your sign is going to be when you say positive 2 times negative 7, and then what that answer is eventually going to be. Seeing some awesome answers coming through. Well done, guys. Keep them coming. Nice. Okay, so who wants to raise their hand to give me an answer? Yeah. Okay, Kyle, what is my answer? Yeah.
Ma'am, it's negative 14
And why is it negative?
because, ma'am, a negative multiplied by a positive is a negative.
Excellent. Well done. So guys, remember, a positive times a negative gives me a negative answer. So automatically I know my answer is negative. And so then when we go to the end, to the numbers, we know that 2 times 7 is 14. And so my answer here is negative 14. Very nice. I know there's lots of hands. I'm going to try my absolute best to give everyone a chance. So let's lower our hands. I'm going to give everyone a chance to take a screenshot here. If you have a question, now's the time to raise your hand to ask before we move on to the next one. Kupano, question? Kupano, you there?
I'm trying to understand what is SNV because I'm late to class.
SNV is basically just an acronym to help us multiply correctly. So if we go here, SNV stands for signs, numbers, variables. Basically the order in which we can do our multiplication and division. So we take what sign we're going to get, then we multiply and divide the numbers. We haven't done variables yet, so don't worry about the B. But when we do
Okay.
algebra, we'll deal with the B.
Thank you.
So okay, nice, guys. So what I want you to try are these three here, C, D, and E. Now, the only thing I just want to quickly say about D is the reason I put this in like this is just to show you that multiplication can be represented in different ways. Now, here in South Africa, we always represent a decimal as a comma. So we would use 9,5 to represent 9.5. This dot in between, in the middle of these two numbers, actually represents multiplication. So often we use a dot to represent multiplication. And so what D is actually saying to us is 9 times 10. So I just wanted you to be aware there of the different ways we can represent multiplication in maths, just that you've seen it. Then I want you to try C, D, and E for me. Put your answers in the chat, and already you guys are on it. Remember to number your answers C, D, and E. I don't want hands yet. I'll tell you when I want hands. There was some confusion around B, so I'm just going to make this a touch smaller to go back there. B, you've got a positive times a negative. Remember, a positive times a negative must then give me a negative. So my answer is going to be, I don't know what's happening. My answer is going to be negative, which is why I've got a negative. And then 2 times 7 gives me 14. So I dealt with the sign first, and then I dealt with the numbers. Excuse me. Right, so hopefully that clears up B, but obviously just put your questions in the chat, or when I tell you to raise your hands for questions, please do. But let's try C, D, and E.
Y'all are amazing, my people. Let's go. Guys, I want to see who is going to actually get 3 out of 3. So Kutlwano, it's not time for hands yet. Remember, we're trying to practice listening skill. So guys, I'm back. I was just busy helping people on the chat. Kupano, hands down, hands down. It's not time yet for hands. No. I want to see you actually writing it down on your books first and then on the chat, so that we can all correct after this and we can give us our mark out of 3. What did you get? Okay, because it's very, very important. Okay, my people, let's go. And we are a lot of us, so I'm expecting lots of answers coming our way. Okay, so if possible, please put it on the same line. You do C, D, E, and then boom, you send it out to us. You send it to us. Okay. So let's go, my people. Let's go. We are getting there. We are getting there. I see people are on number C already. Are finishing number C.
Nice, Cassie. That's how we like those answers.
Yeah.
Okay, so guys,
there we go.
wait, Cassie and Shania, and who is it? There's lots of people now. Molemo. That's how we want those answers.
Let's go. Yeah, doing really, really nice. Let's go. Renee, I hope that you have put your answer, my bro. I hope your answer is there. Bahle, are you starting with someone there? I can see it. I hope both of you have given your answers. Hey, Bahle, shouting out to you guys. Let's go. Guys, remember that after this, we're doing corrections. So you better have written it down on your paper, because definitely I'm going to ask you, how many did you get out of 3? Y'all are doing beautifully so. Ooh, I'm loving those answers, Teacher Sam. They're doing really well.
Very nice, guys. I think it looks like we're almost ready for some answers. So if you'd like to raise your hand to give me some answers, please do. Remember, I'm going to try to give everyone a chance. So if I don't pick you, it's either because you've answered before, but I will hopefully get to everyone. So would you like to do C for us? There should be a pop-up to unmute yourself. There we go.
-8 multiplied by -5 is equals to +40.
Perfect. So guys, remember, negative times a negative is a positive. And so our answer here is +40. Excellent. Well done. Right. So remember, like Yolanda says, you're doing corrections as we go along. If you got it right, obviously that's awesome. But if you didn't, you need to be making sure that you are correcting yourself as you go along and making sure that you are learning from whatever mistakes that you might have made. Okay, Shana, would you like to give me D?
Yes, D is 9 times 9, which equals 90.
Okay, perfect. So 9 times 10, both of them are positive. So positive times a positive is still positive. And so we get a +90 as our answer. Excellent. Well done.
Yes. Let's go, my people.
Oh, so many hands, guys. This is awesome. Molemo, E.
Ma'am, E is -80.
Wonderful. Positive times a negative is a negative.
Yes.
6 times 3 is 18.
18.
Perfect. -18.
Well done, my people. Guys,
Okay, so I hope we've marked.
Okay, okay, so everyone now, okay, while Teacher Sam is giving us a little bit of time, your hands are down if you're not asking a question, okay? But if you did mark it, please show me with thumbs up and thumbs down. If you got 100%, thumbs up, okay? Quickly, while you're busy trying to take screenshots, okay? Let's see, I see Keisha, well done, Keisha. Well done, Mondem, Velo, well done. That's 100% over there. Bunolo got
Nice,
3 out of 3.
guys.
Well done. Ritabile also Spahle. Yala, amazing. We're nailing this, guys. Every single time you have a test about integers, it's 100%, guys. I'm gonna ask to check your papers. at school. Well done, my people. Well done. Y'all are doing amazing job. Yes.
Okay, guys, well,
Yes.
everyone's letting us know if anyone has a question before we move on. Now's the time to raise your hand. Zamo, I see your hand. Have you got a question for us?
Ma'am, is there an easier way to learn how to like memorize like the signs? Like if you say, like, is there a way how to memorize the signs? Because I've done this so many times and I just cannot like get in my head when I am adding a positive, what's the sign? Is there an easier way to
So,
practice that?
I know people have like rhymes and stuff that they try and learn. Personally, I think that this way is the easiest, just learning the signs. I don't know if maybe anyone on the chat has some suggestions of how to better learn our signs.
Me, Teacher Sam, me.
Okay, there we go.
Teacher Sam, if we can scroll up with the box where you did, so Zama can take a screenshot, and Zama, that's what you need to memorize, okay? Zama, so this is what you need, okay? So take a screenshot of that. That's exactly what you need, because with the addition, you are sorted. With minus, you are sorted. It's only the multiplication and the division, okay? So exactly how we put it in there. Can you see? A plus comes with a plus is a plus. So take a screenshot and you memorize that. You are good to go, girl. We move. Thank you so much, Damor. Awesome. Yes. It's cool. Well done, my people on the chat. Amazing. We're moving on. Sorry.
So guys, yeah, if you've got stuff that will help, you're welcome to pop it on the chat. Like I said, I find that the easiest way. I know that people have rhymes and stuff, but I just forget the rhymes. So my brain doesn't work like that. So if you want to help out, welcome to pop it on the chat. So what, oh, gracious me. So what we're going to chat about now is our brain break. So we're not really chatting about it. We're talking about our brain break. Oh, look at that. I did actually put it in our brain break. I'm clearly just losing my mind at the moment. Anyways.
Yeah.
Okay, so this brain break was from last week, and just because I can see on the chat, guys, remember if you're late because of load shedding, network issues, whatever, remember the lessons are recorded. So I'm not re-explaining stuff, but everything is recorded for you so that you can go and re-watch what you have missed. Right, so this is what we had last week, and last week we sort of started chatting about it, but I told you that the answer was 36 centimeters squared, and I told you to go away and think about why that is. So if we go and have a look, the information I told you was that the perimeter of the shaded region was 24. So the outside length of the shaded bit is 24 centimeters. Now, if we think about what that actually means, if I take sort of the side length over here and I push it out to be sitting in line with the one side of the square, and I do the same thing with the other side length and bump it out to be sitting with the side length of the square, what I actually have then is the perimeter of the square. So that 24 centimeters is the square's perimeter. Sure, I've made choices here. Okay, square's perimeter. Now, if I know what the perimeter of a square is, we know that all four sides of a square are equal in length. And so what that means is I can work out one length of the square, or one side of our square. So if I say 24 divided by the four sides, I get that one side is equal to 6 centimeters. One side is equal to 6 centimeters. So every side of my big square is 6 centimeters long. And so now the final question, or the question you sort of wanted to answer, was the question of what is the area of the largest square? Golly, what is the area of the largest square? Because we now know that the side lengths are 6, we know that area is length times breadth. And so we would have 6 times 6, which gives us that's 36 centimeters squared. So that is essentially how those what am I getting? This is how we would deal with our problem solving sort of question over here with the shaded region. And what you had to do there was see that because we had a square, all four sides are equal. And so from that information, we can go and get the area. So I'm hoping that this now makes sense from our brain break from last week. Our joke is it's numb, so it's cold. And number one is quite a small number, and so it's cold. Obviously, one is not the smallest integer we can get, but it's just a funny joke.
It's definitely cold. 1 degrees, guys. It's freezing. And the numb also there, okay? So I got it, and I laughed quite hard.
Okay, so I'm hoping we're now understanding that brain break from last week. It was quite a challenging one, so if you didn't get it, like, please don't stress about that. It was supposed to be a challenge, and so us taking 2 weeks to do it is absolutely fine. But working with the properties of shapes is going to be very important as we move up in maths. A reminder, everything quiz related happens on Wednesdays. And so results from quizzes, that all happens on Wednesdays. Again, guys, you don't have to enjoy the joke. It's absolutely fine. It's just a silly little joke. Right, but let's carry on with our division. Okay,
Yeah,
so if we have, oh no, there we are. So remember I said to you that the exact same rules apply for multiplication as they do for division. So what I mean by that is that block that we wrote with plus times plus is a plus, negative times a negative is a negative, etc., etc. Those rules apply for division. Now, sometimes we might want to write a fraction with a division sign. So this would be negative 25 divided by 5. Some of you in the chat are very distracted, and please remember I will remove you if you're going to distract everyone else. So let's focus. We have got negative 25 divided by 5. So back to our rules, a negative divided by a positive gives us a negative answer. And so I know that my answer here should be negative. If we go back to that idea of SNV, I've dealt with the signs by figuring out what a positive times or divided by a negative is. Now I'll move on to my numbers portion. 25 divided by 5. And we know that 25 divided by 5 is 5. And so because we had a negative divided by a positive and 25 divided by 5, my final answer here is negative 5. So guys, the same rules apply for division. Nothing changes when we get to division. It's the same rules. What we just need to be mindful of is the fact that we are now doing division. We are no longer multiplying. So our values or our answer should be somewhat smaller. So we are working out how many groups of 5 make up 25. Sorry. Okay, so what I'm going to do is make this a touch smaller so you can see B, and I want you to try B for me. Remember your rules of division for the signs. So here you've got a negative divided by a negative. Think about what that means. Pop your answers on the chat. And when I'm ready, I will ask for some hands to give me an answer. SNV, guys, signs, numbers, variables. If you do your multiplication and division in that order, so you deal with the signs first, then the numbers, then the variables, you should be able to multiply or divide anything. Right, I'm seeing some awesome answers coming through so far. Keep them coming.
Yeah, and we hope you are writing it down so you can mark, okay? Because I'm like a straight talker to you, and I'm your chair sort of cheerleader in a way, so I can tell you that some of those answers are wrong because of the signs. So you better write it down so you can mark it. Okay, that's how we learn.
Check your signs, like Yolanda says. Check those signs. Honestly, where most people go wrong, even like in matric, is a sign. And so we don't want to be making silly sign mistakes.
Yep, because even if you get the number right, if the sign is wrong, everything is wrong. That's the problem.
Exactly. Exactly. Okay, so if you'd like to raise your hand, you can do it now. I'm just trying to help someone.
Everybody's hands goes up. Let's go, guys.
Okay. Who have we not heard from? Retabile, B.
Yes, ma'am. 16 divided by -8 is 2.
Perfect. So guys, a negative
done.
divided by a negative gives us a positive. And then we've dealt with the signs. Obviously, we don't write the positive there. I'm just putting it in to remind myself. And then 16 divided by 8 is positive.
Sorry, Teacher Sam, I had to mute everyone. You
No,
are
that's
also
perfect.
muted.
Okay, so guys, negative divided by negative, positive. 16 divided by 8, 2. So honestly, the only thing there, be careful of those signs. Right, so before I put up the next 2 examples, anyone with a question, please raise your hand. I still see Apelele, Mvelo, and Bonolo have hands up, so lower them unless you have a question. And if you do have a question, please raise your hand. Asamahle, question?
Yes, ma'am, I have a question. I do not understand B. I do not understand.
Okay, so for B, what we need to be careful of is that we've got a negative divided by a negative. Now, if we quickly jump back up to our sign rules, we know that when we've got a negative divided by a negative, our answer will be positive. So that was the first thing that I did. I said, okay, negative divided by negative gives me a positive answer. And then I worked with just the numbers. So I worked out what 16 divided by 8 is. And 16 split into 8 parts is 2. So if I think about what this actually means, if I've got 8 groups of 2, I've got 16. And I've made a commitment to join 8 groups of 2, but anyways. So if I divide 16 by 8, I get 2. So I did my division separately. And so because I've got a negative divided by a negative, positive answer, and 16 divided by 8, 2. And that's where S and V comes in. Signs first, then numbers, and then when we eventually do algebra, then variables. Okay, so Asmathi, I hope that makes sense. Okay, there's some help. Asmathi, does that make sense? Okay. For those of you struggling to remember those signs, there's an easy way to remember. When the signs are the same, it's positive. So positive times a positive or negative times a negative, your answer is always positive. But when your signs are different, so positive times negative, negative times positive, your sign will always be negative. So Zia, thank you very much. Very helpful.
Shania has a
Shania?
question.
Shania, do you have a question? Oh, sorry. There we go.
Yes, Miss. Is it fine if I write it like negative 16 divided by negative 8 equals to 2?
Yes, that's fine. As long as you're
Okay.
getting positive too.
Okay, Miss.
Good. Right, and then Velo, do you have a question?
Hi, ma'am.
Hi.
I just came to ask, like, when are we gonna do like the ladder method?
We've already dealt with that.
Okay.
Okay, guys, so what I want you to try are these next two questions, C and D. Now, what I want you to be careful of in D is in this numerator over here, you've got a -3. And remember, the fact that there's nothing between these brackets means that we're timesing -6 before we divide by -2. So D's a little bit tricky. So just remember to simplify your numerator first and then do the division. That's the only hint I'm going to give you. I want you to try C and D. Pop your answers in the chat when you have them, and then we will get some hands to have a C.
Last question of the day, my people. We better do this right. So you want to sit with a pen and a paper somewhere and you are calculating this, because after that, we're going to see who's getting the 100%, the 50%. It's all about the trying, my people. So let's go. Let's go, let's go.
And remember, like Lyle's put on the chat, number your answers. So C and D, so we know which is which. Remember those signs.
Let's not forget C, my people. I already see people are doing number D. You do C. C and D. C and D is 2 out of 2. C and D and C. Okay, I don't even know how to rap, but okay, guys. Let's jam to that music. Let's hope you get it right, okay? It's the last one of the night. We better get 100%.
You guys have got this. I'm seeing lots of D answers, but like Yolanda says, not a lot of C's. Remember, guys, a fraction is only undefined if we are dividing it by 0. Okay, so just remember that.
And guys, no calculators, okay? Calculators aside, no calculators for this ones. Shouting out to one delay, I see you. Woody, we see you. Kutano, I see you. I'm just shouting out to actually all of you, okay? So if I don't mention your name, it's because y'all are 98 of you. So, but I'm looking at all of you, okay? I hope you're doing the things. Kalani, I don't see your face, but I hope you're doing the things. Woo, shadow blocks. I hope you're doing the things over there and y'all are fine. Jabulo also, I need your answer on the chat, please. Let's go. You need to name them. C, give an answer. D, give an answer. Oh, Cassie, thank you. Thank you, Cassie. Guys, you see, when I name you by name, you do put an answer. Let's see who I'm gonna pick on. Kopano, I need your answer. Nelson, I need your answer wherever you are. Cindy, your answer on the chat, please. Lawrence, yes, Ayanda, I see you. Sanele, your answer. Omolemo, your answer on the chat. Let's go, guys. Let's go.
Okay, guys, nice. Okay, so what we're gonna do is Yolanda's gonna pick our last 2 participants here. So now is the time to raise your hands, and Yolanda's gonna call on you to give me an answer. I'm just gonna sit here and write.
Oh, teacher said thank you. Everybody's hands going up. This is my favorite, guys. It better stay there, okay? Let's see. Any, mini, money, more, guys. Okay, I love all of you, and it's a very difficult task, okay? Choose which one to answer the question. It's difficult, but I know that some of you are like good and active and you always give us answers. I'm gonna go for the names that I know that you have never given an answer, okay? So if I don't pick you, please don't hate me. I love you, I love you, I love you. those who have never raised their hands, please raise your hand so I can pick you. I'm still waiting. Raise your hand. I have like about less than a minute. There we go. Yes, my people. Apelele. We are all yours for number C. Apelele. You can unmute and talk to us. Let's go.
Ma'am, hello.
Yes.
Yes, we can hear you. Yes.
Ma'am, see, I couldn't understand clearly. I couldn't understand C clearly. Can you please try
You
to
want to try
explain?
D then?
Yes, ma'am, I can try D.
Okay,
Perfect.
try D for me and we'll come back to C.
Ma'am. D is -9.
Okay, so let's just double check. Our numerator, -3 times -6. So negative times the negative is a positive 18. And then divided by -2. And so then exactly when we've got a positive divided by negative, we get a negative, and 18 divided by 2, 9. Fantastic, Apelele, well done.
Well done, Apelele. Guys, I hope you are marking your work. Apelele has explained it nicely, and so is Teacher Sam. I hope you got the hint for C. For those ones who did not understand C, now when you see the example that they gave there on G, hint, now you should be well and fine for number C. Okay, it's our lucky winner. Guys, anyone who hasn't talked to me and Teacher Sam, hands up. Everybody's hands goes up. Why do I have less hands? Where are my people? Anyone who hasn't talking to us? Where are you? Okay, I'm running out of time, so I just have to pick now. Fundi is our lucky winner. Fundi, do you want to unmute yourself and tell us about Steve?
Ma'am, my answer for number D is 0.75.
Okay, right. Okay, sorry guys, we are on C, just that we're all clear on that. So is it positive or is it negative? Let's start with that.
It is positive and negative.
Okay, so a positive divided by a negative gives me what sign?
Negative.
Excellent, well done.
Yes, well done, Fundi, well done. We're getting there. It's
Right, so
so
we've got a
good.
negative. Right, then what you said 0.75, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so 0.75 is absolutely fine. Personally, I just hate decimals. It's just like a personal issue I have with decimals. So what we need to go back to is like our fraction knowledge. And when we've got a fraction that we want to simplify, what we want to do is we want to ask ourselves what divides into both of those. Now, I know that I can divide 12 by 4 and I can divide 16 by 4. Was 3 and 16 divided by 4 is 4. And so that's what we'll be getting English. That's 0.75 because -3 over 4 is -0.75. It's -3/4. So you can write your answer in either form. I've made some weird choices here, but anyways, we move. Either you can write it as -3 over 4 as -0.75. Either one is absolutely fine, doesn't really matter. But you need to simplify the fraction.
Well done, guys. Well done, my people. Y'all did well.